are here with two lessons today. Lesson 23 on recognizing halves and lesson 25 on factors of whole numbers. So the first lesson is recognizing halves, and we have some pictures to help us. Here we have a picture, and I want to see if I were going to represent this with a fraction, the denominator is going to be how many parts it's split into. So right now it's split into 2 parts, so I wrote a 2 here. To show half, I would fill in half of them, and then I would say how many of the 2 are filled in. So 1/2. Let's look at this one. So this one has 4 parts, and in order to fill in the same amount, or half of the figure, I would have to fill in 2 of the parts. This has 6 parts, and to fill in half of this figure, I would have to fill in 3 parts. This one has 8 parts, and in order to fill in half, I would have to fill in 4 parts. Are you finding a pattern? This one has 10 parts, and in order to fill in half, I'd have to fill in 5 parts. So, hopefully you figured out the pattern. Notice the numerator of each fraction is half the denominator. So the top is the numerator. The numerator of each of these fractions is half of the denominator. 2 is half of 4, 3 is half of 6, 4 is half of 8, 5 is half of 10. A fraction is less than half if the numerator is less than half of the denominator. So the less than symbol, do you remember what that looks like? It looks like that. Or you can write less than if the numerator is less than half the denominator. So an example of that would be like 1/3 or 1/4. 1 is less than half of 4, so this is less, it's less than half. A fraction is greater than, it's not a very good marker to write with, it's hard to read it, but greater than half if the numerator is more than half the denominator. All right, here's an example problem that you might see. Which fractions do not equal half? We're going to draw an X through them. Is 9/18 half? Yes, because 9 is half of 18. How about 10 and 25, 10/25? No. 10 is half of 20. 25/50? Good. It is 8/17? No. 8 is half of 16. 50/100? Good. 30/70? No. 60. 30 would be half of 60. Or 45 would be half of 70. Just kidding. Or 35 would be half of 70. What about 1/4? No. Okay. Now, compare. This is the next type of question you might have, where it asks us to compare. And we're going to compare using the symbols greater than, less than, or equal to. So 5/12 and 4/8. To really compare them, I'd have to give them the same denominator. But because we just learned about halves, I can use that to help us. So 4/8, 4 is half of 8, so this equals 1/2. And 5/12, well, 6 would be half of 12, and 5 is smaller than that, so I know that this is less than a half. And if it's less than a half, then it's smaller than a half. What about over here? I have 3/6, which equals 1/2 because 3 is half of 6. And then I have 3/10. Well, 3 is less than 5, so it's less than tenths. So this one is going to be less than 1/2. Flip your page over. All right, lesson 25. We call all whole numbers of a number that you can divide by evenly factors. So if it asks us to list the factors of a number, like list the factors of 20, I'm basically going to think of what two numbers could I multiply times each other to equal 20, like we were doing before. So all factors have the factor of 1 times itself. So 1 times 20 equals 20. What about 2? Is 2 a factor of 20? If you remember our divisibility rules, because 20 is even, we know that it is. So 2 is a factor of 20, and 2 times what is 20? 2 times 10 is 20, so I know that 10 is also a factor of 20. What about 3? Nope. What about 4? Yes, 4 is a factor of 20. 20 divided by 4 is 5, or 4 times 5 is 20. So 4 and 5 are factors of 20. So those are all my list of my factors, 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20. All right, what about the factors of 23? So we can always start with 1 and 23. And then I can think about, is 2? No. Is 3? No. 4 isn't. 5 isn't. 6 isn't. You know what? 23 is actually a prime number, which means that its only factors are 1 and itself. So 1 and 23 are the only factors of 23. What about 30? I'm going to start with 1 and 30. Is 2? Good, because it's even. So 2 times 15. What about 3? 3, didn't leave myself enough room, times 10. Any other ones that I'm missing? What about 5? Good, and 5 times 6. So I really should have left myself more room so I can write them all like this. So those are all my factors of 30. All right, which of these numbers is not a factor of 40? Well, 40, is 2 a factor of it? It's even, so 2 is. 40, it's always a factor of itself. 5, does it end in a 0 or a 5? It sure does, so 5 is a factor. 3, nope. And 10, it ends in a 0, so 10 is a factor of 40. So in this list, only 3 was not a factor of 40. All right, well, that's everything you need to know, so get to work.